A police officer was on duty in a busy park one sunny afternoon. It was a place where many families came to relax, children played, and people enjoyed the fresh air. Among the crowd was a woman known for her strength and bravery, with her young daughter by her side. The daughter was happy, running around and enjoying the day like any other child. Suddenly, something caught the officer's attention nearby. He noticed the little girl standing close to an area where people were asked not to go, and he became concerned for her safety. The officer moved closer to the child to guide her away from the restricted space. He spoke calmly at first, but the girl did not listen. She seemed confused and a little frightened by the sudden approach. The officer then called his canine dog, a trained police dog known for helping keep people safe. The dog was by the officer's side and ready to respond to commands. The officer believed that using the dog would help him control the situation and protect the girl from potential danger that the restricted area might hold. As the officer gave the command, the dog began to move toward the child. The little girl's eyes widened and she froze for a moment. People nearby started to notice what was happening and stopped what they were doing to watch. The situation that seemed normal just moments ago was turning tense, and those around began to feel worried. The officer didn't want to scare the girl, but his training told him that this was the best way to make sure she listened and moved away from the dangerous area. However, the use of the dog so close to a small child made the onlookers uneasy. The dog stayed calm but alert, its powerful body ready to act if needed. The girl, feeling the presence of the dog getting closer, began to take small steps backward, her fear growing. Her voice trembled as she tried to explain that she didn't understand why the dog was coming toward her. The officer lowered his voice and tried to reassure her, but the tension was already building. People in the park whispered among themselves, some thinking the officer might be too harsh, while others believed he was only doing his duty. The atmosphere changed quickly from peaceful to confusing and unsettling. The little girl's hands shook as she slowly inched away from the dog, trying not to trip or fall. Tears began to form in her eyes as she looked around for someone who could help her. Suddenly, a strong figure appeared in the distance, walking faster than before. The woman who appeared was the girl's mother, and she was known for standing up for her family no matter what. She saw the dog moving toward her daughter and felt a rush of protectiveness like never before. As she got closer, her expression was serious but calm, ready to face the officer and find out what was going on. The situation was becoming a moment that many in the park would remember. The officer noticed the mother coming and prepared to explain what had happened and why he felt the need to use the dog. But the mother's presence had already changed the mood of the scene. Now it was clear that this was not just a simple matter of rules and safety. It involved feelings and human connection. The little girl looked up, her fear slowly changing into relief as her mother came closer. The dog stopped moving forward but stayed next to the officer, attentive and waiting for the next command. This moment, filled with tension, fear, and concern, was only the beginning of a story about bravery, protection, and understanding, one that would touch many hearts and start important conversations about how to treat each other, especially the youngest and most vulnerable among us. The little girl's heart pounded fast as the police dog slowly advanced toward her. She was overwhelmed by the situation, unsure whether the dog would harm her or simply block her path. All she wanted was to feel safe, but instead she felt cornered and scared. Her eyes filled with tears, and her small hands trembled as she took a step back. Around her, the people in the park watched silently, their faces showing concern and confusion. Some whispered quietly, wondering why the officer would bring a strong dog so close to a child. Others understood that his job was to keep everyone safe, even if his actions seemed strict. The girl tried to explain softly to the officer that she wasn't doing anything wrong, and that she didn't mean to step into the area she wasn't allowed to. Her voice was shaky, showing just how frightened she was, yet the officer kept his focus, carefully watching both the girl and the dog. His training told him to stay calm and in control, to prevent any accident. The girl's breath quickened and she swallowed hard as the dog's large paws touched the ground a little closer. She took another small step backward, praying that everything would be okay. Despite her fear, she felt the urge to stay strong, as if somehow her bravery could change the situation. At that moment, the sounds of the park, the laughter of other children, birds singing, the rustle of leaves seemed far away. All the girl could hear was the soft growl of the dog and the quiet commands from the officer. Everything felt so intense, like time slowed down just for her. Her mind raced with questions. Why was this happening? What would her mother say? How long would this last? She wished she could disappear, to be safe inside her home instead of facing this frightening moment in public. The officer, seeing the anxiety on her face, spoke gently but firmly. He explained that the dog was trained to keep people safe and that he hoped using it would help the girl understand the danger of the restricted area. He meant no harm, only to protect her from a possible accident. Despite his calm voice, the girl still felt uneasy. Protectiveness grew inside her as she thought of her mother, hoping she would arrive soon to help her feel safe again. The presence of the dog, with its powerful muscles and sharp eyes, made the whole scene harder for the child to handle. Bystanders began to murmur quietly among themselves. Some were sympathetic to the girl and worried that the officer might be using too much force. Others believed that laws and rules had to be followed no matter what, trusting that the officer knew best. A few people took out their phones, recording the event, unsure whether this was something important or just an unfortunate misunderstanding. The presence of cameras added a new layer of tension to the scene. Meanwhile, the little girl did her best to stay composed. She took deep breaths, trying to calm her shaking hands and slow her fast heartbeat. She reminded herself that she was safe as long as she listened and stayed still. Suddenly, from a short distance away, the sound of quick footsteps approached. People's heads turned toward the new movement, sensing a change. The woman who had been calmly watching from afar was moving fast toward her daughter, her face serious and filled with concern. The little girl's eyes lit up with relief as she saw her mother coming closer. Knowing her mother was near gave her courage and a sense of protection. She felt her fear easing at least a little. The mother's steady steps brought a change to the atmosphere. Where confusion and fear had filled the air, now there was hope and strength. The officer noticed the woman's presence and prepared to explain the situation, ready to share his side of the story. The mother stopped just a few feet away from her daughter and the dog. She looked directly at the officer with calm but firm eyes. There was no anger in her voice, only a clear message that she was there to protect her child. She gently took her daughter's hand, pulling her slowly away from the dog. The child's lips curved into a small, thankful smile as she held on tight to her mother's hand. The giant dog remained still, sensing the shift in the energy of the moment. The people watching felt a wave of relief as the father and daughter moved closer together. The tension that had held the park in silence began to melt away, replaced by a quiet understanding that this was a moment about care and family. With her daughter safe and close, the mother asked the officer to explain what had happened. Her voice was calm but clear, showing respect but also demanding answers. She wanted to understand why the dog had been brought so close in the first place. The officer took a breath and looked at the mother with sincerity. He shared his concern for the girl's safety and his hope that the dog's presence would encourage her to leave the restricted area. He did not want to frighten the child, only to keep her safe from harm. Listening carefully, the mother nodded slowly. She appreciated the officer's honesty, but reminded him gently that children could be scared easily, and that situations like this needed careful handling. She spoke about the importance of kindness, especially when dealing with little ones. The conversation between them was respectful and serious. Neither side wanted trouble, but both wanted what was best for the child. It was clear that the mother cared deeply for her daughter's well-being. The park slowly returned to its usual calm. Families continued their walks, children's laughter returned, and the birds began to sing again. But those who had seen the event understood that it was more than just a moment. It was a lesson about protecting each other and listening carefully. The little girl stayed close to her mother, feeling safe and loved. She learned how important it was to have someone who would stand up for her when things felt scary, and the mother realized how much she needed to be the voice for her child when the world seemed too big. The officer packed away his dog's leash, feeling a mix of relief and reflection. He thought about how important his job was, but also how delicate moments like this needed patience and understanding. Both the mother and the officer knew that this day had changed something. It had shown them the power of protection, courage, and respect in a world that sometimes moves too fast. And as the sun began to lower, casting a warm golden light across the park, the story of the little girl, the officer, and the dog became a quiet reminder for everyone watching. Kindness and care should guide all actions, especially toward children who look for safety and love in every step they take. The police officer stood quietly for a moment, watching the mother gently hold her daughter's hand. He knew his role was to protect everyone in the park, but he also understood that this moment called for something more than rules. It needed care and understanding. As he looked at the little girl, he could see her fear slowly shrinking because of the presence of her mother. This made him pause and think about how best to handle the situation. He began to explain why he decided to bring the police dog forward. The officer said that in his experience, sudden movements or ignoring warnings can sometimes lead to accidents, especially around restricted areas. He wanted the child to know that running into those places could be dangerous, not just for her but maybe for others as well. The dog, he believed, was a way to safely encourage her to listen and move away. He told the mother how important it was to follow rules in public spaces, especially when these rules are there to protect children and everyone else. But now, seeing things with fresh eyes, he also realized that sometimes people need extra care and patience, not just commands. The mother listened calmly. She appreciated the officer's honesty and his concern for safety, but she gently reminded him that children do not always understand why rules are made, especially when those rules come with threats that frighten them. She said that while safety was the priority, there are ways to teach children without scaring them, especially when it comes to police dogs. Children can react with fear that lasts much longer than the moment. She shared her own feeling, that her daughter was scared because the dog came so close without much warning. For a child, a big dog can seem very scary, especially when it moves quickly and looks powerful. The mother explained that children need to be helped to feel safe, even when they are being guided or corrected. The officer nodded thoughtfully. He explained that his dog was trained very well, to be calm and only react when commanded. The dog was there to protect, not to hurt. Still, he agreed that working with children requires special care, and that he would take this lesson seriously. Then, the mother spoke about the importance of respect and kindness, especially from people in uniform like the officer. She said that when children see police officers acting with care, it builds trust. Trust makes it easier for children to listen and cooperate. But if children feel scared or threatened, they might not understand or respect the authority as much. The officer looked at the child again and saw how her small hand gripped her mother's tightly. It was clear that for her the most important thing was feeling safe, protected, and understood. He realized that enforcing rules and showing care must go hand in hand. The mother also asked the officer to think about families who might have different experiences with police officers. She said some children may feel scared of police officers because of stories they have heard, or things they have seen. She asked if it might be possible in the future to find ways to help children feel more comfortable before situations reach this level of fear. The officer agreed that this was an important point. He shared that police departments sometimes hold community events where children can meet officers and their dogs in a friendly and fun way. These events show children that dogs are helpers, not something to fear. He promised to share the idea with his team and consider more ways to help children feel safe around police officers. As their conversation continued, the little girl started to relax more. She looked up at her mother and then back to the officer. Hearing their calm and respectful words helped her feel less afraid. The presence of adults who cared about her feelings made all the difference. The park, once filled with tension, now felt peaceful again. Passers-by who had been watching began to smile, and some even applauded softly, happy to see kindness and understanding win in a difficult moment. The officer gave a soft smile and thanked the mother for her patience and thoughtful words. He said that every situation is a chance to learn and get better at serving the community. He knew that protecting people was more than following rules. It was about respecting feelings, listening, and caring for every person he met. The mother nodded and thanked the officer for listening. She said she hoped that together, they could help create a safer place where children, families, and officers all feel understood and respected. They all agreed that while rules are necessary, how those rules are explained and enforced makes a huge difference. When kindness leads, safety follows naturally. Before leaving, the mother helped her daughter take a few steps away from the restricted area. The girl smiled shyly now, feeling proud that her mother had stood up for her and glad that the officer cared enough to listen. The dog, still calm and well-behaved, sat quietly at the officer's side. The bond between the officer and his dog showed how teamwork and trust could help keep everyone safe, as long as they worked with respect and care. As the sun began to dip lower in the sky, the mother and daughter slowly walked away, holding hands and feeling stronger together. The officer stayed behind, watching them leave with new thoughts about how important it is to protect, not only with strength but also with kindness. This experience was a reminder to everyone who witnessed it that at the heart of law enforcement and community safety, there must always be understanding and respect for the feelings of others, especially the young and vulnerable. And so the story of that day spread quietly through the park and beyond, inspiring many to look at difficult situations not just with rules and order, but with open hearts and gentle care for one another. The mother stepped closer to her daughter, wrapping an arm gently around the child's shoulders. Her protective nature was clear in the way she held her, offering warmth and comfort to calm the fear that still lingered. The little girl looked up at her mother with wide eyes, feeling the strength and love that only a parent can give in moments of fear. This simple act made the girl feel safer instantly, as though the world had shrunk down to the two of them. The police officer, now standing nearby, watched this quietly. He realized that the child's fear was natural and needed time and patience to heal. The sight of the mother's calm but firm presence reminded him that sometimes the most important job was not to enforce rules, but to support and protect in a way that understood human emotions. The mother took a deep breath and spoke softly to her daughter, explaining that everything was going to be okay. She reassured her that she was there to protect her no matter what. This gentle voice was a balm to the child's jittery nerves, giving her courage to breathe a little easier. Looking toward the officer, the mother asked him once more to please consider how children might feel in situations like this. She talked about how for little ones the world can be confusing and frightening, especially when faced with something as big and strong as a police dog. She reminded him that children need clear explanations and kindness to understand why rules exist and how to follow them. The officer listened carefully, nodding in agreement. He admitted that while training taught him what was right to do in many situations, real life sometimes needed more than just rules. It needed a kind heart and understanding that every person, especially a child, is unique and deserves gentle treatment. Nearby, the police dog sat obediently, calm and alert. The mighty dog was a symbol of safety and protection, but also a reminder that power without care could cause fear. The officer thought deeply about how to balance strength with sensitivity, especially when dealing with children. The mother asked the officer if he could share what had happened with his team, to help everyone remember the importance of kindness in their work. She hoped that sharing her daughter's experience would encourage more thoughtful and gentle approaches in the future. The officer nodded with respect, promising to bring this up. He said that protecting people was his greatest priority, but he now saw how kindness must go hand in hand with protection. He thanked the mother for her patience and wisdom in talking through the event. Meanwhile, the little girl, holding tightly to her mother's hand, was slowly regaining her confidence. Her small steps became steadier as she realized she was safe and cared for. The support from those around her gave her hope that she could face the world, even when it seemed scary. Around them, bystanders who had been watching started to relax. They smiled softly, encouraged by the peaceful ending to what could have been a frightening experience. Some quietly whispered words of praise for both the mother and the officer, impressed by how the situation had been handled. As the mother guided her daughter away from the scene, she reminded her gently why it is important to listen to adults and follow safety rules. But most importantly, she reassured her that it was okay to feel scared sometimes, and that her feelings matter. The officer took a moment to check his dog's collar and leash, thankful that everything had ended without harm. He reflected on how important it was to approach every encounter with respect for people's feelings, especially children's, who navigate the world with wonder but also with vulnerability. The mother and daughter started to walk toward a nearby bench, where the child could sit and relax after the stressful moments. The mother kept her arm around her daughter's shoulder, sharing quiet words of comfort and love. The officer stayed close by, watching to make sure everyone was okay. He felt a deep sense of responsibility, not just for the safety rules he enforced, but for the trust the community placed in him. This moment had given him a new view on what his job really meant beyond the badge and the uniform. The police dog, sensing the calm, rested its head lightly on its paws. It was clear the dog trusted both its handler and the people around. The dog's calm presence helped remind everyone that safety comes from teamwork and care. This moment in the park became a story shared quietly by many who saw it. It was a reminder of how important it is to protect not only with power but also with kindness. The story talked about how real strength shows when people choose to care deeply for each other, especially the smallest and most vulnerable. The woman, proud of how her daughter had handled such a tough moment, vowed to continue teaching her about safety, respect, and bravery. She knew her role as a mother was not only to protect, but to prepare her child for the world. One gentle lesson at a time. The officer, too, left the scene thinking differently. He understood more clearly that every person he met was more than a rule to follow. They were human beings with feelings, fears, and hopes. He felt grateful for the chance to learn and grow from this encounter. As the sun began to set behind the trees, the park returned to its normal rhythm. Children laughed again, dogs played, and families enjoyed the evening air. But underneath the everyday life, a quiet change had taken place, one that whispered softly about respect, kindness, and the careful balance between authority and understanding. This day became a lesson not only for those involved but for everyone nearby. It showed that no matter the situation, kindness and patience are the greatest tools we have to connect with others and make the world a safer place. And so, the story of the mother, her daughter, the police officer, and his faithful dog lived on in the hearts of those who witnessed it, reminding them always to treat each other with care, especially when fear and uncertainty walk close at hand. The mother stepped forward, her eyes locking with the officers in a calm but serious way. With a voice steady and clear, she began to express her concerns about what had just happened. She wasn't angry, but she was firm in her belief that her daughter's safety and feelings needed to be the top priority. She explained that children, especially young ones, do not always understand rules or warnings right away. They need gentle guidance filled with kindness, not fear. The sudden appearance of a large police dog was overwhelming for her daughter. It caused more fear than respect, and that was something she wanted the officer and others watching to understand. The mother shared her hope that officers could find ways to handle such situations that protect children, while also making sure they felt safe and cared for. She mentioned how a child's trust in police officers is very important. If children are scared, that trust begins to break. As she spoke, the crowd that had gathered listened quietly. Some nodded, agreeing with the mother's words. Others thought about how important it was to balance safety with kindness, especially around children. The officer listened closely to every word. He respected the mother's honesty and the way she spoke for her daughter with courage. He realized that his actions, though well-intentioned, had scared the child, and that was never his goal. He took a deep breath and thanked the mother for sharing her feelings so openly. He explained that his training had always prepared him to act quickly to keep people safe. However, he agreed that situations with children needed a different, softer approach. The officer assured her that he would take this experience to heart. He promised to share it with his team and look for ways to improve how they worked with children. He hoped that by learning from moments like this, all officers could find better ways to protect without causing fear. The mother felt relieved as she heard his words. She could see that the officer was sincere and wanted to do better. That moment of understanding between them brought a sense of peace, knowing that growth and change were possible. Nearby, the little girl listened to her mother's words and the officer's responses. She felt safe again, wrapped in her mother's gentle embrace. Even though the day had been scary, she saw that honesty, kindness, and respect were powerful tools to make things right. The police dog, calm and watchful, sat quietly by the officer's side. Its presence reminded everyone that it was trained to protect, not to frighten. But it also showed how important it was that humans lead with care and understanding. The crowd began to disperse slowly, with some people offering quiet words of support to the mother and child. The atmosphere that had been tense was now softer, filled with hope that this experience would encourage better understanding between officers and families. The mother took a moment to look around, noticing the mix of concern and encouragement in the faces of those nearby. She felt grateful that her voice had been heard, and that she could stand up for her daughter. She continued to talk softly to her child, explaining that sometimes adults make mistakes, But the most important thing is to learn from them and try harder next time. She reminded her daughter how brave she was, even when things felt frightening. The officer began to gather his things, his mind reflecting on how best to serve and protect. He thought about the balance needed between safety and empathy. For him, this day was a reminder that his job was not just about law and rules, but about human hearts. The mother and daughter started to walk away slowly, hand in hand. The child's small steps were more confident now, strengthened by the support and love she had received. The mother promised herself to keep teaching her child about safety and respect, but also about kindness and courage. As the pair moved through the park, the officer watched, feeling hopeful that this moment would lead to a better tomorrow. The bond between him and his dog showed him that teamwork and trust could extend beyond just their training. It could be a bridge to the community he served. The day faded into evening, leaving behind lessons about courage, understanding, and the power of speaking up. The story of the mother standing strong for her frightened daughter, and the officer listening with an open heart, became a quiet message shared in whispers and smiles, that true protection is always filled with kindness. And so, this moment of challenge and care grew into something bigger, a reminder for everyone that when we protect each other, we must remember to protect feelings and trust as well. That kindness, respect, and listening are what build safer, stronger communities for everyone, especially the children who look to us to lead the way. The crowd around the park began to talk quietly amongst themselves as the situation unfolded. People were curious, concerned, and some even surprised by what had just happened. Everyone had their own thoughts and feelings about the event, sharing opinions in soft whispers or exchanging brief glances. The mix of reactions showed how much this moment touched different people in different ways. Some of the witnesses felt sympathy for the little girl and her mother. They believed the child had been treated harshly and that the police dog should never have been brought so close. These onlookers expressed worry that the girl had been frightened more than helped. They quietly talked about how important it is to protect children with gentle care, not intimidation. Others, however, felt the officer was just doing his job responsibly. They understood that he was acting to keep everyone safe, and that rules in public areas must be followed. To them, the presence of the police dog was a way to help control the situation quickly and avoid danger. They saw the officer as someone trying to do the right thing in a tough moment. The differing opinions stirred a sense of debate among those who had watched. Some discussed how police officers must balance safety and kindness carefully, especially with children involved. They agreed that protecting everyone is important, but hoped that future situations might be handled more gently. People began to ask questions about how police trained their canine dogs and how they decided when to use them. Some hoped that officers received special guidance on dealing with children, while others wondered if more training in communication and patience might help prevent moments like this. The park, once quiet, was now filled with the gentle hum of voices, each sharing stories or opinions. For some, this was a lesson about respect and caution. For others, it was a reminder of the challenges officers face every day. Yet no one could deny that the moment had sparked something important in their minds. Near the mother and daughter, a few strangers approached quietly. They offered kind words to reassure the girl and praise the mother's calm strength. It warmed the mother's heart to see how many people cared, even if they were strangers. The little girl smiled softly at the kind faces, feeling safe again. Meanwhile, the officer stood quietly, watching the crowd and thinking deeply. He knew he had sparked a powerful conversation, one that went beyond the park. He felt both challenged and grateful, knowing that learning from this event could help improve the future. He spoke softly to a fellow officer nearby, sharing his thoughts about how important it is to understand the feelings of the people they serve. They talked about ways to build bridges of trust between law enforcement and communities, especially with families and children. Some people in the crowd pulled out their phones, capturing the moment in photos or videos. They knew this story would travel beyond the park, shared with others who might learn from it. The recordings were not to spread trouble, but to spark awareness about how to treat each other with care and respect. People discussed quietly whether this incident could help change how police officers work with children. They hoped that training might include more lessons on empathy, communication, and gentle guidance. Many wished that every officer would learn to balance authority with kindness. The mother, seeing the crowd's concern and care, felt hopeful. She knew her voice had made an impact, but she also understood that real change is a slow process. Still, every small step matters, and this moment was one such step. She held her daughter close and whispered words of comfort and pride. The child was growing braver, learning that it was okay to feel scared but also important to stand strong. The mother promised to keep teaching her about the world's challenges and the power of kindness. As the crowd began to thin, the sky overhead changed from bright blue to the soft colors of late afternoon. The park returned to its peaceful rhythm, but the thoughts and feelings stirred by the event remained in the hearts of those present. The police officer, with his dog calmly by his side, prepared to leave the scene. He felt a deep responsibility to do better next time, inspired by the courage and care he had witnessed between the mother and daughter. The story of the afternoon would be shared and remembered, not as just a moment of conflict, but as a powerful reminder of the importance of understanding, patience, and respect in every human connection. The people who had seen the event walked away with a new perspective on law enforcement, children's fears, and the power of kindness to change a situation. They understood that safety is not just about rules, but about building trust and protecting hearts. And so, as the sun slowly set behind the trees, a quiet promise grew within the community. It was a promise to listen more, to act gently, and to always remember the needs and feelings of the smallest among us. This promise, sparked by a day in the park, had the power to bring people together, to make the world a better, safer place for everyone. It was a story about bravery, care, and hope that would continue to inspire long after the day had ended. After the tense moment in the park, word of the incident spread quietly but quickly. The story reached the local police department, which took notice immediately. They knew it was important to understand exactly what had happened, and to respond carefully to ensure the trust of the community was maintained. The officer involved was asked to explain his actions. He shared his version calmly and honestly. He explained that his main goal was to protect everyone, especially the child, from harm. He described how the situation seemed dangerous at first and how using the police dog appeared to be the best way to get the child to move away from the restricted area quickly. He also spoke about the training he had received on handling difficult situations, including those involving children, and admitted that each moment is a challenge that requires patience and judgment. The officer was willing to learn from the experience and improve his approach in the future. The police department held a meeting to discuss the incident and listen to advice from community leaders, child safety experts, and trainers who work with police dogs. They wanted to understand better how to prevent fear and confusion in situations involving children, and how to build a stronger, kinder relationship between law enforcement and families. The department also recognized the importance of clear communication. They planned workshops and training sessions focused on empathy, especially when officers interact with children or vulnerable people. They believed that teaching patience and kindness alongside safety protocols would lead to better outcomes. Meanwhile, the mother stayed deeply involved in the process. She spoke with officials, sharing her experience and feelings to help guide future training and community programs. She wanted to make sure that her daughter's fear would help bring positive change for other families. The little girl, though still young, understood that the situation was being taken seriously. She saw how much her mother cared, and how the community was working to keep her safe in better ways. This brought comfort and hope to both mother and child. Community meetings were held where families shared their stories about encounters with police. These meetings helped officers hear directly from residents, building understanding and trust between the two groups. The conversations were honest and respectful, focused on solving problems and supporting safety with kindness. The officer who had been involved also attended these meetings, listening to others and sharing his experience. Hearing different perspectives helped him see the world through the eyes of those he protects. It renewed his commitment to serve not only with strength but with compassion. The police department introduced new ways to train police dogs alongside officers in environments where children are familiar and comfortable. This included visits to schools, parks, and community centers, allowing children to meet the dogs in friendly settings to reduce fear and build trust. These community efforts created a positive change. Children learned that police dogs are helpers trained to keep everyone safe, not something to be scared of. Parents felt more confident that officers would handle situations involving their children carefully and respectfully. The mother became an active voice in the community. Speaking about her experience at events and workshops, she encouraged families to share their stories and to work with law enforcement to create safer, kinder neighborhoods. Her bravery in standing up for her daughter became an inspiration to many. The officer and his dog continued their work with renewed understanding. They approached each day with more awareness of the feelings of the people they serve. The bond between officer and dog grew stronger, as did their ability to protect gently and effectively. This story became more than a single moment in the park. It became a turning point, a chance for a community to come together, learn, and grow. It showed that mistakes can lead to learning, and that kindness is always a powerful part of keeping people safe. As time passed, families felt safer knowing their concerns were heard and respected. Police officers worked harder to build trust, knowing that respect from the community is earned every day through care and understanding. The little girl grew up surrounded by support and safety, learning from her mother's courage and the community's changes. She carried with her the lesson that speaking up can make a difference, and that every person's feelings matter. The event remained a powerful reminder that safety is not only about rules and enforcement, but also about connection, patience, and respect. When these come together, communities become stronger, and every child can feel truly protected. And so, the day in the park marked the beginning of something much bigger, an ongoing journey toward a better world where people care for one another with open hearts and hands ready to help, making life safer and kinder for all. The days following the incident in the park were filled with quiet reflection for everyone involved. The mother spent time thinking deeply about what had happened and how it affected not only her daughter, but others as well. She understood that her story could help bring change and hoped it would lead to better understanding between police officers and families. She began to speak publicly about the event, sharing her experience with other parents and community groups. Her words were simple but powerful. She talked about the importance of listening to children's feelings and teaching police officers how to approach young people with care and patience. Her message was clear. Safety is important, but kindness and respect must always come first. She encouraged people to see each other as human beings, each with their own worries and fears, especially children who need extra love and protection. The mother's story reached many ears. Community centers invited her to speak. Schools included her ideas in their lessons about safety, and police departments listened carefully. Her journey showed that one mother's voice could inspire many to think differently about how we protect and care for one another. The little girl, now feeling much safer, grew stronger every day. She learned that even when scary things happen, having someone by your side who believes in you makes all the difference. Watching her mother speak up gave her the courage to be brave in her own way. The police officers involved, as well as others in the force, took the lessons to heart. Training programs were updated to include more focus on empathy and gentle communication. Officers practiced ways to calm children, explain rules kindly, and avoid using force unless absolutely necessary. The police dogs, too, became part of community programs. Officers brought them to parks and schools for friendly visits where children could see that these animals are helpers, not threats. These visits helped build trust and ease fear, teaching children to feel safe around police dogs. Communities began to come together, sharing stories and ideas about how to make neighborhoods safer with warmth and understanding. Meetings were held where families and officers talked openly, finding ways to support each other and grow stronger through respect. The mother remained an important voice in these efforts, reminding everyone that change begins with kindness and listening. Her story was a quiet beacon of hope, shining light on how small acts of care can lead to big improvements in safety and trust. The officer involved continued his work with a new outlook. He understood that serving the community is more than enforcing rules. It's about building relationships where people feel safe in body and heart. His partnership with his police dog became a symbol of strength, mixed with gentle care. Together, the community, parents, children, and police learned something valuable. Safety is not just about stopping dangers, but about protecting hope, trust, and love. When these are woven into every action, the future becomes brighter for everyone. The story of that day became part of a bigger conversation about how society treats children and how police serve families. Its message spread quietly but deeply, encouraging more compassion in every corner. And so, life moved forward with new understanding and respect. The mother and daughter, stronger and closer than ever, lived with courage and hope. The officer worked with care and wisdom, inspired by the lessons learned. The police dog remained a faithful guardian, proof that protection is most powerful when it comes from a place of kindness. And the community stood united, ready to face challenges with open hearts and hands that lift each other up. This story, a moment of fear, turned into a movement for kindness, remained forever a reminder that the greatest strength lies in caring for one another, especially the smallest among us. It showed that when people listen, learn, and love, they create a safer and better world for all.